Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the council. Before you today, we have a lot division request at the request of Darrell Paul at 1206 East F Street within the city. Just to orient yourself, it's a subject property at the center of your screen, which is outlined in red, approximately 29,000 square feet in size, has property frontage on F Street to the south, Orchard Ave to the west, as well as Grant Street to the east. You have Rotary Park to the due west across Orchard Avenue. You also have various residential structures surrounding the property, basically single family, as well as some intermingled two-family dwellings within those. Looking at the zoning configuration of the area, subject properties within the R3, which is our medium-density residential zoning district, as well as Rotary Park, and a large swath there to the north as well as to the east. You have an R2 zone due north as well as to the south across F Street. R2 is our moderate density residential zoning district. Just a closer aerial view of the property. Contains one dwelling on the west-hand side. There's also a shed, which is shown on the record as survey. The tree canopy prevents you seeing that on this aerial here. Once again, F Street to the south, Grant to the east, and Orchard to the west. This would be the proposal before you today. Basically divide the 29,000 square foot parcel into four parcels. The existing that has the existing house on it basically be a little under 8,000 square feet in size, and the remaining parcels would be just over 7,000 square feet in size each, maintaining the lot width requirement for the R3 zone, which is 60 feet. And so all these parcels either meet the 60-foot requirement or a little bit over that. Minimum lot size for the R3 zone is 6,000 square feet for single-family dwellings and 7,000 square feet for two-family dwellings. This was the record of survey which was submitted for the project. Basically, you see those four parcels there. You also have a private driveway access easement going across all four parcels for the benefit of those parcels, and it will be private, it won't be public, and that was currently proposed to be 20 feet in width. I'd also like to note there was a little bit of confusion. There was a vacation of right-of-way that happened previously, and so you see this lot width here is 44.49 feet in width. When you add the additional vacation amount, that brings that total lot width into about 64 feet in width there. Looking at the parkland dedication requirements, there is a requirement for parkland dedication because this property is not within a platted subdivision. Looking at the R3 designation, basically 7% of the net developable area is required for parkland dedication. So once again, we have that 29,000 square foot parcel, basically 2,030 square feet of dedication, or $629.26 fee in lieu of dedication. So Parks and Rec Director has looked at this and recommended acceptance of basically the fee in lieu of the $629, and that's within an attached memo, which is attached to your packet today. And just a side note, the developer will need to pay the fee in lieu of dedication prior to any building permits being issued on this property. So Public Works Finance Committee had reviewed this and conducted a public meeting, and that was on May 27th, 2014, and they recommended approval to City Council with no conditions. And staff's recommendation before you tonight is approval of the lot division request with no conditions suggested. I'd certainly stand for any questions that you might have.
Council has questions for Mike. Art?
A couple of them for you, Mike. Just to clarify, the access in the back is for alley access to rear-facing garages potentially?
It would serve as alley access. It's not a public alley per se. It's a private access easement which would transect all four of those parcels. But yes, that is the intention of that, in order to push the building footprints of the structures closer to the street. You have a 15-foot setback within the R3 zone, so technically you could push it to that 15-foot front setback and have private alley access to rear-loaded garages if you intended to.
And so that the lot width is sufficient to accommodate two townhouses per lot, essentially side by side?
It would be able to accommodate a duplex. We would also allow townhouses within this zone. Obviously, this isn't the proposal before you today. We'd also allow twin homes. The problem with of accomplishing twin homes is that you need to divide the parcels further than that, and so essentially you would divide those in half, and that would kick you into a subdivision plat. And so that's why we're here at the lot division stage.
Gotcha. And also, what's the classification of F Street out front?
It's currently designated as a collector in our
Okay, so
comprehensive
backing
plan.
movements are discouraged on collectors?
Discouraged, I believe it's only arterials where they're prohibited. So for single-family, two-family dwellings, you're still allowed to do that movement. If it were for multifamily, which isn't allowed in this zone, or commercial, you wouldn't be allowed to back out on the right-of-way. So.
Walter, did you have something for Mike?
Mike, so the lot widths and square footages that are marked on that aerial and everything else we can't see that the Community Development Department has considered all meet the zone in which it's being proposed?
Correct.
We're not looking at any exceptions or any changes?
No exceptions, yep. It's just a blanket 60 feet for the minimum lot width for that zone, and then you have the two 6,000 and 7,000, so it meets the higher standard for the lot area within the R3 zone.
And if I may follow up?
Continue.
And any development on those properties would require the usual curb gutter sidewalk type improvements?
Correct.
That we require
Any
on
new
development?
principal structure on a vacant piece of property would require full frontage improvements. Correct.
Thank you.
Wayne?
First of all, I assume that your aerial drawing, your one line on the lot one is not probably in the right spot.
The record of survey is more accurate
I noticed
there.
that,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah.
accurate. And then just to follow up on Walter's, because my question also was sidewalks, curbs, gutters, not only on F Street but also on Grant.
Correct. It'd be on F Street. You know, technically, I think I misspoke at the Public Works Finance Committee meeting. We'd have to take a look at this property here to the west. It has an existing house, and so the way our code works is that the time where you pull a new principal building permit for a new principal structure on a vacant piece of property, then that's when the frontage improvements kick in. And so if they're not doing any new building on the westerly portion, then technically they would not be required.
Even on F Street?
Even on F Street. So basically it would be from this point here to here, up here, where they technically would not be required because there's no new principal structure on that property.
Wayne, you have a follow-up on that?
So just clarify then, on F Street, the sidewalk would not go from intersection to intersection. It wouldn't be required to do that.
Yeah, it would only be required to go, obviously, up Grant Street, down here to the intersection, over here to the west, and it would basically end at this point, or not be required to go in this direction. We'd always recommend that the applicant extend it all the way to the Orchard F Street intersection for pedestrian connectivity. As you can see, the Rotary Park has a pedestrian pathway on that south side. So we would recommend that to the developer, but technically they would not be required to do that portion.
John?
You just answered my question.
Okay. Tom, you had your hand up earlier. Was that question?
No, I was going to ask the same
Okay.
question
All
about
right.
the sidewalk. Thanks.
Okay. Other questions for Mike? Okay, let's move on. I'm going to, even though this is not a public hearing, I'm interested in taking public comment if there's anybody out there who'd like to speak on this. Please come to the podium, sir. State your name, keep your remarks to less than 3 minutes. Your address?
My name is Michael Tsatsomiros. I live across the street on 1207 East. Okay, Michael Tsatsomiros. I live on 1207 East F Street, which is essentially just across the street. I like the proposal. I have nothing against it, but I would just like to bring to your attention a concern. Inevitably, if there's 6 new homes essentially there, 6 new families moving in, there'll be perhaps as many as a dozen cars. That's the reality that will have to park on the street. Maybe Orchard, maybe Grant, maybe F Street, I don't know. That's what happens. And having lived across the street there for 2 years now, there is a very great concern that I have. Orchard is kind of the only way to come out all that huge development area behind it. There's a lot of traffic coming on F Street from Orchard, not as much from Grant. A lot of traffic going back and forth F. A lot of kids walking up and down our sidewalk, the only sidewalk on the south side, on bikes, on, their skateboards, running, walking. And there's also kind of a funny elevation where if you're backing out or even coming out a driveway, you can't see very far. People are speeding. So it's even now very difficult to be able to come out your driveway, and that would be the case for at least 4 or 5 homes in that area, with the cars parked on the street, with all the cars coming out of Orchard and Grant and coming up and down F. If there's more cars that are going to be parking on F Street, if these are going to be the fronts of these 6 new units essentially there, I am fearful and very concerned about the situation being developing over there. So I would like to bring that to your attention as a consequence of allowing such that density of residential development there. And I don't know if you have the power or you can direct perhaps the Moscow police to come and look and reconsider the speed limit, even the pedestrian crossings where they are. They have not been resurfaced or repainted for probably many, many years because you can't see them anymore. It's a very serious concern that I have about that. It affects me directly. Basically, my heart pounds every morning when I have to get out my driveway, and I think you should be wise to know about it and may perhaps help us not make the situation worse.
Thank you. Okay, hang on before you ask this guy a question. Do we have others that would like to speak? Please come up to the podium, state your name, address, and we'll give you 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Bill Parks, 1630 Pinecone Road. Just a point of information. Last year I was talking to Dwight Curtis, and I worked out a methodology of the alternatives to land, that is the dollar amount. And I look here, and he assured me that they were working on this and that they were going to have a comprehensive change. At that time, I was suggesting that the cash in lieu of should be in some way related to the dollar amount of the value of the property. And I suggested further that they might accept the money on the parkland dedication after the things had gone on, because it may be a problem for the developer to put the money up right ahead. But I look at this thing right now, and I'm just guessing that this is going to sell for rocks approximately $7 to $10 a square foot. And your acceptance is at 30 cents a square foot. That's less than 1/25 of the market value. I would like to know if the council or the staff are planning on doing something about this disparity between requiring land dedication and accepting cash dedication. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Michael Ray, I'd like you to kind of address the parking issue, if you could, where we're at with that and the circumstances with that. Would you please?
Well, as far as the off-street parking requirement for any new structure that gets built on these properties, if it's a single-family dwelling, it'd be required to have 2 off-street parking spaces, one of which has to be located outside of setbacks, so you could build a garage or a carport or some other structure above it. If it's a two-family dwelling, basically be the same thing. You'd be 2 per dwelling unit. So if they built duplexes on these parcels, basically be required to provide 4 off-street parking spaces, 2 of which have to be located in an area which could be garaged or covered in the future.
So they will have driveways and/or garages that would suffice the parking.
Correct, yeah. When I had spoken with the developer previously, it indicated that he was planning on rear loading. That's the intent for the 20-foot wide access easement to the north of the property, basically building, garages at the rear and rear loading all of those duplexes that he planned on building on these properties to the north there.
Okay, thank you. Wayne, you had a question?
And while you're talking about parking, Michael, you just confirmed that parking on F Street is only on the south side, not on the north side. There is no parking on the north side of F Street.
I'm not sure I can answer that off the top of my head.
I don't think there is.
Bill, do you have an answer to that? Bill Belknap, do you know?
On-street parking.
I
know it's
couldn't tell you on the
south
north side of
side.
F.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I don't know.
he doesn't know. Walter, did you have a question you wanted to
Yeah,
answer?
that was my question I had written down. Kevin, do you know?
Please come up.